It is our pleasure to honor Doug Ballinger as the 2022 Rambling Willie Award winner. This award is presented to the Ohioan who has done the most for harness racing for more than 2 decades. Doug has been a track announcer for more than 52 years and holds the distinction of being the first unofficial graduate of the Roger Houston School of Announcing. Doug heard the then young Houston at the Champaign County Fair in Urbana. Doug called some qualifying races at Scioto Downs and got to meet Roger, who took Doug under his wing. Doug called the matinee races in Lima in 1970 and has never looked back. Doug picked up a number of Houston's county fairs when he moved to the Meadows in the mid-1970s. This season, Doug will celebrate his 50th year at the Champaign County Fair and the Darke County Fair. He currently calls the action at 16 county fairs and matinees in Ohio and Indiana. During his free time, Doug also helps the OHHA with their fair broadcasts. Please welcome our Rambling Willie Award winner, Doug Ballinger.
I practiced this speech over and over for 2 weeks. That was pretty much it. Oh well, we'll get started. As a 16-year-old, I was asked to groom a horse by the name of Catfish and go to the Champaign County Fair. When I got there, I couldn't believe the voice that I would hear coming across the speaker that night. It was a voice like no other. The excitement the announcer put in his race calls gave me chills. And I knew right then I was going to become a track announcer. And that voice then was 26-year-old Roger Houston. 26-year-old Roger Houston. Our friendship has been going on for 54 years. And I am proud to say I'm the first to graduate from the Roger School of Announcing. Thank you so much, Roger. I can remember meeting Roger at Scioto. I only knew him by his voice. I'd get a hold of that tape, but owner Don Hay of Catfish I would listen to that tape over and over and over again till I knew it word for word. Little did I know the next summer when I went to Scioto Downs to groom some horses, that same voice would be there. He was jogging horses one morning by the fellow by the name of Mark Ferguson. He would hear me calling the qualifiers one morning at Scioto. He made a point of meeting me. He said, I liked what I heard. You got the potential to be a great announcer. So a couple weeks later, he ran into a bind. He was calling races on an afternoon card at the Warren County Fair in Lebanon, and that evening had to be to Ottawa at the Putnam County Fair. So he called me. And he said, would you be willing to go to Ottawa and fill in until I get there? Of course, my answer was yes. Arriving at Ottawa that night, I do the post parade for the first, all excited I'm going to call a race. Here comes Roger Houston walking across the infield to the announcer's booth, thinking I wouldn't get a call race that night. But I did the post parade for the first, and Roger says, you post paraded the first, you'll call the first. I called the first. He said, you did a great job. I want you to call the second. And that's how my career as an announcer began. This past summer, I was asked by the Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association to be part of their broadcast team, a job I truly enjoy. Working at Delaware, covering Jug Week, the 5 days of Delaware, or traveling to Northfield Park to cover the Ohio Fair Championships. Special thanks to Frank Frost and Susan Schroeder. Whether you're an announcer, trainer, driver, or whatever, you always have some highlights in your career to share. In 2019, on my 50th anniversary, Roger had me call a couple races on Jugette Day. That was a thrill. Or 2 years ago, working at Hoosier Park one night, filling in for Steve Cross, Grand Circuit event, Dexter Dunn fortified, would stop the timer in 1:47.3. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would call a mile that fast. But probably the biggest race I ever called happened 50 years ago. At that time, I didn't know how big that race would be until I came across this program. It's from the Mercer County Harness Horsemen's Association, Matinee and Salina. It's dated May 14th, 1972. I was a senior in high school, ready to graduate the following week. The first race that day was a field of 5 two-year-old pacers, all making their first career start. Coming off the rail that day was a 2-year-old bay gelding by Rambling Fury out of Meadow Bell. He was owned, trained, and driven by Raymond Gibson of Monroeville, Indiana. The following summer, he would sell for $15,000 and go on to race the rest of his career for the red and gray colors of the Bob Farrington stable. Throughout his great career, he would win 128 races, earn over $2 million, take a mark of 154-3. In 1997, was voted in the United States Harness Racing Hall of Fame. They would write a book about him. It was called The Horse That God Loved. Yes, it was Rambling Willie. 50 years ago, I called Rambling Willie's first race, and tonight I stand here proudly accepting the Rambling Willie Award. That's a lot harder than calling a horse race, believe me.